SpongeBob has been airing for over 20 years now, and during my time watching the show from the beginning, we have seen a lot of strange and otherwise bizarre episodes. Especially in the later seasons, there are just way too many to cover. I tried my best not to choose too many episodes from seasons 9, 10, and 11 and 12. I have nothing against the newer seasons. In fact, I enjoy them as much as the old ones, but I managed to sneak a few in here. Take note, this list is in no apparent order. I'll let you decide for yourself which episodes you think should be at the top. This list is also my personal opinion. If you agree, that's great. If you don't, that's fine. Let me know down in the comments below what your strangest SpongeBob episodes are, and if you agreed or disagreed with this video in the end. Let's begin the list. Pat the Horse is a season 11 episode of SpongeBob. I know I said in the intro I'll try to exclude too many modern season episodes because they're all weird anyway, but Pat the Horse is an episode I find to be utmost bizarre. I don't see a lot of people talking about this episode. So one day, SpongeBob is reading a book to Patrick called You Can Be Anything. SpongeBob reads out all of the job descriptions people can be in the book, but there is one thing that catches Patrick's eye the most, and it's a horse. Patrick then starts pretending to be a horse, but then things get out of hand. When Mr. Krabs thinks this is a great idea for whatever reason, then he gets Squidward to become a horse, and they end up racing each other. Yes, this is actually an episode. SpongeGuard on duty. Well, I think modern SpongeBob episodes are great. I also love the original series too. Seasons 1 to 3 are famously known for being the best period of the show. This is mostly because of Steven Hillenburg's involvement. These classic SpongeBob episodes weren't as abstract to the next level as they are these days, but I often find this particular episode to be quite unusual. SpongeBob and Patrick sign up for lifeguard duties at Goo Lagoon after seeing Larry get all the attention from everybody. SpongeBob and Patrick want all the attention too and decide to apply for the job. But the strangest part about this episode is the undeniable fact that SpongeBob and Patrick can't swim. What are they even doing underwater if they can't swim? How is this possible?
2 hours later.
I understand that this story was only used as a joke, but it's so bizarre to think that in this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick have survived in the water for so long, and now they suddenly realize they can't swim. I love this episode. The story stretches out to make absolutely no sense at all, but for an enjoyable purpose, which is something I often found in the original series, and it did quite well. Unlike these days where modern episodes made no sense because they just make no sense. Speaking of making no sense, Bunny Hunt from season 11 involves SpongeBob adopting a sea bunny that doesn't require a helmet or pressure suit for whatever reason. At first things are normal with his new friend, but then the sea bunny decides to start destroying everything in the house. Then the fact that Nickelodeon often try to push this as an Easter special episode is also really bizarre. I'm not saying this is a bad episode, it's just really weird to me. One Trick Sponge. One Trick Sponge is a really unusual episode from season 12. It also feels shorter than most other episodes for whatever reason. In this episode, SpongeBob has suddenly decided to take an interest in magic, because why not? He decides to show Patrick his newly found magic trick, but Patrick isn't around. He decides to go to Squidward's place, but Squidward is so reluctant to see SpongeBob's new magic trick that he removes his eyeballs. He tries to show Sandy and Mrs. Puff too, but both situations fail. You get the idea. Everyone just doesn't want to see SpongeBob's magic trick. But then he gets sad and Patrick suddenly shows up and says he saw the final part of the magic trick he's tried to show everyone else. At the end of the episode, they go inside a magic hat and perform the magic trick, but the audience does not get to see it, and then the episode abruptly ends. When I first saw this episode, I was disappointed that we didn't get to see the full trick, and I was like, well, is that it? But then I think now it's a very clever way on how to end the episode. SB129. This sure was a really disturbing but enjoyable episode of season 1 that's often quite memorable and much loved amongst the SpongeBob fan base. So the story starts off by SpongeBob and Patrick pestering Squidward as they do. But Squidward just doesn't want to go jellyfishing with them. So in the end, he decides to lock himself up in the Krusty Krab to get away, but accidentally locks himself in the freezer. He doesn't come out until 2,000 years later when he's rescued by Spongetron, a robot version of SpongeBob from the future.
Hey guys, Jake here. Just a quick editor's note. The strangest thing about this episode to me, ever since I was a kid, hasn't been that Squidward goes to the future. It's not that he goes to the past. It's not even the whole alone scene. It's the fact that nobody opened that freezer for 2,000 years. Just think about that the next time you're watching this episode.
The part I enjoyed the most as well was when Squidward ends up in the mysterious void. He enjoys it at first because he's being alone, but then things start getting terrifying, so much that he actually misses the company of his old friends. I absolutely love this episode. It's incredibly unusual and very creative. The Inmates of Summer. Season 5 of the show did have some odd episodes, but I've often found the Inmates of Summer to be most unusual. So in this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick are waiting to go to the Sun Fun Island camp on the ferry docks to wait for the ferry, but they miss the boat unintentionally and end up on the next transfer boat, which is a prison boat, but they don't seem to realize it's a prison. Eventually they go around causing chaos to everyone on the ship. The prisoners eventually decide to use SpongeBob and Patrick's stupidity and as an advantage to escape, so they do so by musical theater. One thing I love the most about this episode is R. Lee Emery's character, the prison warden. In the end, the prisoners get caught and SpongeBob and Patrick placed on the proper ship. The warden asks what do they do on Sun and Fun Island, and when SpongeBob tells them what he thinks it's good enough for punishment for the prisoners to send to Fun and Sun Island too, who try to escape. The prisoners really don't like what happens on Sun and Fun Island. The Splinter. Season 6 of SpongeBob is known to be infamous, but one episode I find truly bizarre is this episode called The Splinter. One day, SpongeBob gets an unfortunate accident that we, the viewers, can see in all of its glory. He seems fine, but discovers he has a splinter on his thumb from the accident. At first, he decides to brush it off and continue working with his splinter, but then Squidward finds out and scares SpongeBob into the possibility of missing work because he has a splinter. The episode relies heavily on gross-out humor and visuals that don't really suit well for SpongeBob. This episode feels more like a Ren and Stimpy episode than a SpongeBob episode. I've got nothing against it, but it just feels really weird and out of place. Squidward in Clarinet Land. This is a famously talked about episode from Season 7, as it's another great unusual episode that focuses on bizarre and abstract surroundings in a very creative way. One day, Squidward gets so upset the way people are treating his personal belongings at the Krusty Krab that he demands Mr. Krabs to get a locker. Then Mr. Krabs gets them a locker, but they have to share it because Mr. Krabs is a cheapskate. A dismayed Squidward agrees to use the locker, but ends up getting bothered about SpongeBob obsessing over it so much. At one point, he needs to pick up his clarinet at the end of the day for a clarinet recital, but he realizes SpongeBob's hidden it somewhere in the locker. Squidward now goes on a bizarre and ridiculous quest to get his clarinet back. On the way, he encounters some incredibly unusual and strange stuff, most of which is somewhat surreal and disturbing, and he goes on an episode of self-discovery. Unlike SB-129, this episode is set in the present. Squidward gets trapped in the endless locker void and has to find a way on how to get back. I really enjoy these kind of really random and weird SpongeBob episodes. It's great seeing everyone have so much creativity and fun involved with the story, and the visuals ending up with almost surreal experience. Planet of the Jellyfish. The animation style for modern SpongeBob episodes these days is often highly expressive and over-animated to great detail. Though this does provide a great sense of comedy to the show, I also enjoy the original animation to the series as well before it became incredibly expressive. Planet of the Jellyfish feels like it's a parody of some kind of weird 1950s sci-fi B-movie. When I watched it first time it came out, I remember being absolutely terrified of it. The whole atmosphere is just so creepy and done amazingly well. And those eyes, how can you not get creeped out by those jellyfish eyes and all of the weird black eyes? This episode literally starts off with an alien jellyfish eating another jellyfish. SpongeBob decides to adopt it as a pet. Eventually the alien jellyfish takes over everybody's brains and they get turned into odd zombie-like pod people with incredibly disturbing facial expressions who only say things like hold the mayonnaise and blarg. I love this episode. Even though this list isn't in order, I would definitely put this in like number 2 or number 1. And the alien jellyfish are terrifying. Look at those teeth. In the end, the day is saved by SpongeBob and Sandy, but Mr. Krabs ends up with a new recipe for jelly relish from the alien jellyfish in the end. Everyone seems to like it, but Patrick suddenly says, hold the mayonnaise again, and the episode ends in a cliffhanger. This is such a great episode from the later seasons you should definitely check out. I would love a follow-up from this episode one day if the writers ever decided to do it. Quarantine Crab. This SpongeBob episode is so unusual and strange that it was not only banned from airing on TV, but also banned from being released on the season 12 DVD box set as well. This episode, however, was made in 2019, roughly a few months before the pandemic, so unfortunately they decided to shelve it and not air it on TV because of the sensitive subject matter. But the coincidences between the cartoon and the real-world pandemic were so uncanny was the main reason why Nickelodeon decided to stop the airing of this episode at all. Now, I've seen the episode in question, and after watching it, I can understand why it was banned. The episode starts off like any other episode, but then chaos shortly breaks loose when the health inspector enters the Krusty Krab and claims that the customers are infected with the crab flu, so they have to quarantine themselves in the building. This starts making everyone, including Patrick, go nuts. It's a really strange and somewhat frightening episode. I can see why it was banned. Who knows? Maybe this episode will be released on a future DVD series if the pandemic settles down, but for now, the strange surroundings of this episode remain a mystery. Anyway, that's my list. Did you agree with it? Did you disagree with it? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!